Hello and welcome to After Dinner Conversation. After Dinner Conversations, a growing collection of short stories across genres meant to draw out deeper conversations. Download After Dinner Conversation short stories on Amazon to your Kindle app devices, phone, laptop, Kindle, tablet, all those things, or wherever they are sold. This is our podcast to support that and talk about some of those stories. I am your co-host, Kolby. I'm here with Jeremy co-hosting, as well as Ashley co-hosting.
That's my name.
Triple co-host.
Triple co-hosting. And we are in, again, this week, we're in
La Gattara.
La Gattara, thank you. I screwed it up twice now. La Gattara in Tempe, Arizona, where there are cats up for adoption, and they were nice enough to let us host here. All right, so our story this week is My Fellow Immortal Americans. Ashley, you want to sort of run it down for people who haven't read it so they know what we're going to be talking about?
So yeah, if you haven't read it, hit pause, go read it really quick, but I'm just going to give you a quick kind of overview, but then, after you're done reading it, hit unpause and come back and watch this. But basically
Perfect.
what it is, it's a speech given by the American president sometime in the future, a couple hundred years, and the issue is that there's overpopulation. So his way to kind of get around this, instead of having a cash-based system...
The society's not his, right? Like it happened
The
before.
society already had it.
Yeah, it was already established.
Yeah, already had it.
So instead of being a cash-based society, he decided that there should be, you work for time. They have found some scientific way that you can you work and you earn this time, which makes you live for an infinite amount of time. So you can be 100, 200 years old.
You never get older. You never get sick.
So the debate is basically how they want to regulate this system. There's other societies that they mentioned where you work 40 hours means you get 40 hours of life plus 6 hours of like bonus time. But he's thinking, well, if you're rich, like why can't that money go toward like be passed down to your kids, or does it get put back into the system to give to others?
Your kids could inherit time.
Can inherit time.
Yeah.
So that's basically the premise of the story. Again, it's based off a speech that he's giving to promote.
So what is it? It's like a donors club or something.
Pretty much,
right.
yeah. And so it's basically his reasoning of why shifting that paradigm shift, that you can pass off your time to your kids, or how you should earn your time.
And
Right.
my impression was, I think this is pretty clear, he thinks that like free capitalism, right? Like you should be able to make as much time as you want. You should be able to pass it to your kids. You should be able to exploit workers, like whatever.
Yeah.
So one of the things I was a little confused about when I read it was, so it seems like you're born at 0,
Right.
and if nothing happened, you die at like 60 years old,
Whatever,
right?
right. Whatever
60, 70 years
normal
old.
life
But if you
expectancy is.
work, then you've essentially stopped to that clock. So you might be 20 years old. If my math is wrong, like if I'm getting this wrong, let me know. You worked, like you start working at like 18 or 20 years old, and then basically that freezes your time.
Right.
And then if you ever are like, I don't want to work anymore, then you still got 40 more years before you sort of die of cholera or something.
And the way he presents it is, in the U.S., the system is for an hour work, you basically get an hour of your life extended, an hour for an hour.
Which is when you think about it, it's kind of a bad deal.
It is kind of a bad deal.
Because, I'm going to get one more hour so I can work. Like, that's, like,
No, but I
feel
think
like
the
nobody at
idea
a call
is,
center is like,
like,
knocking
you
this
have-
out of the park.
No, you have your normal life expectancy of 60 years, and if
Yeah.
you work 40 of those years, you will live to 100.
Right. Even though those are 40 years you spent, like, picking
Spent
up
working,
trash
yes.
or something.
And really 40 years of 40-hour weeks. So,
Right.
you're,
Like, you just
you
work
are
a
kind of getting
15-hour
stiffed.
week. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and he mentions other systems like France as a bad example, where
socialists.
where they get way more hours of life for hour worked, and says the country's in a depression because nobody wants to work.
Right. Oh, that's right. Because it was like you work 8 hours, but you get paid 20 hours.
Something like that.
So
yeah.
you
only
essentially
have to
can
work,
extend your life forever working only some of the time.
So
Right.
you you basically promote not over, like, why would you do overtime then?
Yeah.
Why? That was the whole thing. Is
Right. Why would you
you're-
work if you didn't have to?
Yeah, exactly. So it's promoting laziness is what his concern is.
Yeah.
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 And we should also mention, there's a horrible movie roughly based on this idea.
Yes.
With
I thought it was pretty
Justin-
good. Justin
Justin
Timberlake.
Yeah. Like, it's
Yeah.
not bad, but it's... I
I
feel like
forget what
there's
it's
so
called.
much more could have been done with that movie.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but it's not
the same
exactly the
idea.
same idea, but it's roughly the same idea
Yeah.
where there's this is sort
Time
of
is
very,
currency.
Where time is currency, yeah.
So again, the whole reason for this time shift is the overpopulation. So in the reading, they said there that they a solution for those that have worked hard and who have earned their future to have that future, and those that have squandered their opportunity to gracefully make space for the next generation of children.
Isn't it like 15 billion is like the world cap number that they came up with?
Yeah. So basically, in a way, it's kind of like you can set your own death.
Sure,
if you think about it,
effectively, right.
which I thought that was very interesting, because right now I think that's outside of Oregon, there is no like assisted suicide, whereas here it puts that in the people's hands. I don't want to live anymore. Let me just stop working, and then you're no longer given those drugs that keep your life going. So I thought that was. I know that's not the premise of this, but I thought that was an interesting concept.
It's an interesting additional topic that
you get to choose.
Yeah, you get to choose when you want to live, when you want to die. And then what if you, like, I don't want to live anymore, but I want to give my time to my kids? Anyway,
like
I thought
Delta,
that was...
like Delta frequent flyer miles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a little interesting.
Yeah. There were a couple things about it that I thought that for me were really interesting, right? Like one of them was this idea of the president seems to assume, our fictional president, not our current president, of course, seems to presume that people are inherently lazy, right? That if you chose not to, if you didn't have to work, no one would work.
Yeah.
Right, and as always, there's hypocrisy in the argument where he says, rich people should be able to give their time to their children, but people should be working. So there's a hypocrisy there.
Yeah.
In that. Well, if you're lazy and don't want to work, you shouldn't get to live forever. Oh, except for rich kids.
Right. And I think one of the things that the story that frustrated me, I mean, there's a lot of things that frustrated me about the idea, which I think is the point of it.
Right.
Is this idea that you assume that everyone gets paid the same amount for their same thing, like whether you're the CEO or whether you're...
I think they're even stating there's income inequality.
Right, and that's the part that frustrates me, right, is they did this to solve income inequality from people being hungry, but yet...
And there's still income
inequality.
inequality.
I might, like the Jeff Bezos of the future, might work an hour and get paid 40 years.
Yes.
Right? And it's like, so you're arguing that people are inherently lazy, but in the same breath you're arguing of this income inequality that encourages the very laziness. You're like, oh no, but they're just more efficient. Like they're just better than
They're
you.
doing better things.
Yeah, they're saying by the government tampering with the marketplace, one, it discourages hiring, it discourages investment, it encourages laziness, and it causes American jobs to be shipped to cheaper labor markets overseas.
Yeah, like I feel like you could pull that out of the newspaper today of why people don't think you should raise the minimum wage.
Yes.
Well, and that's one problem with the story in general, is that it's just replacing one aspect of our current economic system when it's a more complex system.
Yeah.
So income inequality isn't the only issue. So it isn't enough of a change to really bring up the questions, or you're really only focusing on income equality when it's a more dynamic system.
Yeah.
I'm not following you. I mean, I get it that it's only changing one thing
aspect of it.
in the
So,
overall economy.
Right.
You're
I'm saying it doesn't go far enough.
Oh, okay.
In terms of questioning what the problems are with the current system.
Oh, sure.
Because you're only questioning one factor of the current system.
But I think that's the thing that it's drawing out, right? Is for some reason, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but for some reason, when somebody who doesn't have a lot of skill, right? They're just they're not good with technology, they're not good with engineering, whatever. They get paid $8 an hour. You're like, well, you kind of deserve that because if you'd gone to college or whatever. I'm not saying it's fair, but that's the sort of rule. It seems fairer than saying like, if you didn't like get a degree in engineering, you should die. Like that's a much more extreme view, which I think it creates, in me at least, it creates a little bit more of a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
Like you are so unproductive. I am okay with your death.
Now, I'd like to know, in every society, you need those people that do pick up the garbage, that do you don't need the higher education to do those tasks.
Yeah.
So are they basically devaluing those people?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That
how does this society run?
It's not changing enough. It's really the same system.
Yeah.
You could talk about the current system in the same fashion without having to change one aspect of it
Sure.
to bring focus on it.
So you're saying that the time aspect of it, like, it makes it interesting, but it's the same problem.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, they even go into it too with the taxes.
Yeah.
Like if you make X amount of money, you get taxed 10% of your time,
Right.
which gets redistributed to social services.
Yeah.
Those that maybe can't. Oh my gosh, you're adorable. Sorry, there's a cat that is right in front of me that's like on its belly, like pet me. Or if you make a certain amount, you have to pay 20%. Where would it end, and why would any of us work? That's the concern with paying.
Right.
And I'm like, where does it go to help out your fellow man?
Sure.
That still becomes an issue.
But that same argument, I think, I don't know, the argument I don't think comes up when you're talking about minimum wage. Like, nobody says if you change the minimum wage to $15 an hour, like, people will just stop working, because there's this assumption that, like, somebody's going to want to buy, like, a TV, or they're, like, might actually want to send their kids to college or have $1 in savings.
Okay, in that
aspect, it's a little bit different.
A little bit different.
But, yeah, I don't know.
No,
But that's not what they're focusing on.
Right.
They're still just focusing on income inequality.
Yeah.
It seems to
It's
be
just they've swapped out what the inequality is.
right.
Okay, so we keep talking about income inequality. What about quality of life? You keep trying to buy this time for more time, but what are you filling that time with? I'm just totally extracting it from the currency aspects. But
And I think that's not even talked about in the story.
Yeah, but I'm just bringing it up as a side thing. For example, everyone now wants to live longer, and it's like, well, you're going to extend your life 5 years, but what kind of quality of life will you have there? It's kind of the same thing. They're talking about these people living for 200 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, great, you're living 200 years, but
What are you doing with
what
it?
are you doing with that 200 years?
Yeah, it also made me think about sort of the interchangeability of time and money, right? That, like, money is really just a portable version of time.
It is.
Right? Like, I go to work for it, and I spend an hour to get $30 so that I can have a car, so that I don't have to walk somewhere. So I've saved
Save time.
Right,
In a way, right
it's like a
now,
portable
money is
version
time.
of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the things that this did get me thinking about is, like, this idea of, like, okay, so would I work for an hour to buy a car to drive somewhere, or would it be a better sort of way to spend my time to just walk there in a hurry, right? Or
Right. To spend that time walking.
Well, so you work to afford the car to get more time, time that you use to go to work, to make more money, to afford the car, to get you to work.
I feel like that's the same treadmill people are on now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, once I have to get a car so I can drive to a job that pays better. And you're not like, but now I have to pay for the car.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the idea that everyone now isn't sick? Like, yes, you're swapping out one inequality for another. But if you choose, if you're like, look, I just don't want to work. I want to surf every day. You could just
absolutely do that.
spend your whole life never working a day and live to 60-ish or 70-ish and die. And I mean, that would in some sense be like the dream. Like, the only reason that's not the dream is because there are people who live 100,000 years. But were it not for these other people, you would think you had the greatest life ever.
And they're aging where the rest of the world is not.
Yeah.
So that's another factor of this is by working, you're getting the drugs that not only are keeping you young, but keeping you young for a long period of time.
Right. Able to do those sort of interesting
Right.
things.
So if you were just opt out of the system, you would live a normal life.
Right.
And age.
Right.
And I'm sure it doesn't go into it, but that would also be an interesting story of what are the age stigmas that would come up because of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
you're older.
Like, why are you 60? You must be lazy.
Yeah.
You must have made some you must have lost a lot of time in a divorce.
Discriminating against younger people.
Yeah.
Discriminating.
And really
like, you're young, like, what happened? Like, why are you 60?
Right, so I'm gonna
you only have 10 years left. Like, what's your deal?
Yeah.
And like, what did you do wrong?
Yeah. Now, interesting enough with...
You must be a felon.
Right. Yeah. You must have had your time taken away. Right.
So another interesting concept, nowadays when you have money, you can show that wealth with a car, with clothing, that sort of thing. In this issue, there is no money. There's just aging. Do you show
a sign of wealth?
Do you show your age on your forehead? Because keep in mind, how are you going to show the aging?
In that movie, they do the thing on
They
the
have
arm.
the thing on the
It
arm.
seemed pretty weird to me.
So how do you know how much time the other person has left?
I suppose you look for wrinkles.
Yeah, I know, but remember
sunscreen becomes a
but
currency.
the aging just goes slower, though.
All topics not really addressed in the story.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be interesting to see.
I also think what would be an
interesting... questions that it brings up.
What I think would be an interesting spin-off story of this is you would think in this society there must be people who have simply opted out of this.
Exactly.
Right? Like communes or hippies or whatever that are just like, I'm going to be born, I'm going to live, I'm going to die, I'm not going to work, I'm not going to get into your game. And just like a separate like subclass of people who have opted out of this immortality.
Now, keep in mind, they said, in this case, in this story, there is no cancer, there is no disease. They've eradicated almost all non-accident-related deaths. So you literally, there's no famine. You're just living.
You just live and get old and die.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and I think they even get rid of the getting old in it seems like.
Unless you stop taking the medication.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
So what about the idea, does it offend any of you? Because it kind of offended me that there are people who believe that they have a right to effectively be God, right? To have immortality. And that they feel like through my work or through my endeavors or through my manipulation of employees or like whatever,
Right.
but all the ways that people get rich, they inherited, they do something, they open a factory in Thailand. There's something that's like that really like just got me where it's like you're trying to argue to me that you have the right to be God. And that I think is more offensive somehow than being the right to be like a billionaire.
Exactly.
Now,
It is offensive.
They mentioned in there too that these drugs are mimicable. Like you can't.
Oh, they're limited.
Yeah,
so.
they're limited. So there's someone that controls it. So it's still a corrupt system.
Yeah.
Someone controls it. Someone distributes it. Like somebody.
Or
like
somebody's stealing pills out of the factory.
Exactly.
And selling them on the black market.
Selling them on the black market. Yeah. The other thing that isn't touched on, and I've totally lost my train of thought. That isn't touched on the story is I forgot.
No,
It'll come to me.
I don't know. The story does raise a lot of questions,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be interesting to see this as a more fleshed out,
Like
longer
as a novel.
story.
Yeah, I bet there
absolutely.
is a novel about this.
Because the world building would be so interesting.
Yeah.
And the other ramifications. And I feel like we have seen a lot of stories like this
Yeah.
that do talk about immortality and how that affects humanity. It's an interesting topic for science fiction.
It is. Yeah, I agree with that. Is there anything else about this story you guys thought interesting? Or I'm still trying to think of the thing that I was thinking about.
Let's just go through the questions. By the way,
Yeah,
there's a list of questions at the end of each story. We're going to kind of go through one by one. Chime in your answers. Give us your thoughts in the comments below. And also, read these stories with your friends. Sit down.
Yeah.
This is after dinner conversations. They're designed to be sit down with your friends like we are. Cats are optional to have sitting on your papers.
And in the comments, feel free to comment of what we got right or what we forgot about or whatever you think we should have talked about.
Chime in your 2 cents.
We do have some questions in case we forgot about stuff. Oh, this is going to show your your leanings. Would you support or oppose the time redistribution laws? Do you think
that are proposed in the story?
Yeah. Do you
being
think
proposed by Congress? Absolutely.
Yeah, so you're like, I want to surf more and not work.
Right. France has a good system. We should absolutely do that.
So you think progressive time tax?
Yes, progressive time tax. Because
But
there
wait a minute,
are
I'm gonna call you on this, then, dude. All right, so I'm not disagreeing because I'm that way. But so let's say that you get your like time paycheck from the government, right? You're on time unemployment, and so every week they give you an extra 5 days. So you're gonna keep getting your medication or keep getting. Are you seriously gonna work a day in your life, dude? And if your answer is no, like no, I'm not gonna work, then isn't the president actually right in this story?
No.
Seriously, if somebody wrote you a check for time, you'd be like, yeah, I'm definitely going to work.
It would depend.
Okay,
but
let's hear it.
there are reasons for wealth distribution or time redistribution. But again, it needs a larger story to really flesh this out in the sense
I'm not asking
because
the
if
story,
you're
I'm
not,
asking you, man.
But still, you have to put it in perspective of the world in the story.
Yeah.
So in the world in the story, nobody's injured, so everybody should be able to work.
But why would
nobody
I?
has back injuries and can't be on the dole.
I'm just saying that if I get my low income money.
But you want to take a vacation, right? You need extra time to take vacations. I want to take a year sabbatical. How do I do that if I have to continuously work for an hour for an hour?
So how do you pay for things, though? Do you pay with time?
You pay with time, I think.
I'm sure.
Pay with your
it's,
time?
again, a monetary system.
Yeah.
Like the movie with Justin Timberlake.
Yeah.
You're paying for everything.
Yeah.
So...
I remember what I was going to talk about really quickly, but I totally think you balked on that question. How do they? This is the other part they don't talk about in the story. Is how do you decide who gets to have a kid? So there's an absolute cap of 15 billion people on the earth. somebody dies because they just decided to die or decided not to work anymore.
That would be another interesting
And so now
part of
you've
the
got
system.
one new person that can be born out of 15 billion. Like, is it a lottery or
or is it within your family?
I think you have to maybe pay for that kid in time up front.
Yeah.
Like you have to pay
'Cause
for
you
the
have to
first 18 years. You have to have 18
Right.
years worth of wealth build up to pay for that kid to get to that 18 years before they can start working and
for their
accumulating
own
their own time.
Yeah.
Man.
Boom.
Again,
I also think under this system, I think education would be way longer. Because if you live 500 years, why wouldn't you be in a 30 or 40-year education system?
yeah.
Like, because you're not.
I know people like that now.
Yeah, right. they
Lifelong student.
stay in
Going
school.
for another degree.
Stay in school. I took it literally. Okay, so I want to go back to the original question though, because so you're telling me, let's say you work at a regular job 32 hours a week.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. We're getting PTO now. You get as part of your salary. So you want to take time off, you have to work for that time off.
Yeah.
So if it's an hour for an hour, you know, and really
Then
you're
the
only
only
working
free time you have is the money you get from the government.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think it would change the type of work people would do.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if it's an hour for an hour, are they working 12-hour shifts?
No, I mean, they're
12
still
hours
working
on,
40
12
hours.
hours off.
Exactly.
Like,
Well, you're still losing time if it's an hour for an hour because every time
Right.
you're not working,
You're not getting
getting
a
closer
year
to
for
death.
every year.
right. Every time you go to
Exactly.
sleep, you're burning time.
yeah. Dun, dun, dun.
What about you, Ashley? If you got like an extra 40 hours a week from the government, would you just work less? Or that pause says yes.
I think the thing is, what are you using that time for?
Yeah.
If these people don't have a purpose, if they don't have a drive, if they don't have anything that interests them, if they have no limitations with disease or needing things, like it feels like everything in the world has been solved. Like someone who's in the healthcare, like I'm constantly trying to look at the newest research, all that stuff. It's like those things don't exist even to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, well, then what am I going to use my time for?
Just
so
the
I
things
guess-
that you
I
love,
think it
right?
depends exactly, and not everybody has a job that they love. They're just jobs.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if you're in an industry or if you're in a position that you like what you're doing, yes, you're going to work
The
more.
movie theater popcorn people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. The
Oh, come on. There's no way they love that job. There's no
Right.
way they love that job.
right. So I like my job, but if I could work my job less, I would.
Yeah.
Currently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you even
Not
know
everyone's like you that loves to work all the time, Kolby.
right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I don't know, man.
So
I don't know.
you think people aren't inherently lazy because obviously Jeremy and I are like, we'll work less and take what we can get.
Well,
So you're,
I think here's what I think would happen, and this is totally just me making this up. Like of course, but of course I'm making it up. I think there'd be two ways people would work. I think you would either work at you'd optimize your time. Like if I knew work was only for time, like it was only
Yeah.
work and it had served no other purpose, then I would do whatever paid the most possible.
Exactly.
Like I wouldn't think to myself, well, what I really want to do is no. I'd be like, oh, you need me to clean out the sewage with my bare hands,
And you're going to pay me.
and it pays me 10 hours for every 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to go fishing for 10 hours.
how about the
right?
opposite? Hey, you're going to get paid $10 an hour on this really simple task. You don't think I'm going to go as slow as possible on that task?
Yeah. So I think for me,
You have to fold these papers. Okay.
It depends. Right. It depends
Yeah.
on what you're doing.
I'm
Right.
You know, are you being
folding the
paid by the
paper.
unit or paid by the hour?
Yeah. So
Exactly.
I think, and again, I'm just guessing, but I think what I would do is I would either I would optimize the time if I was trying to make time, or I would just do what I wanted to do and not worry if I got paid at all. There'd only be two choices. There
What do
wouldn't be a sort of in between.
What's the percentage of the population? What do you think they would do? Do you think most people would try to optimize their time, get the most bang for their buck? Or do you think most people will be like,
I think
I
fear
think
of
it's
death
gonna
is a
depend.
really big thing.
Yeah,
though, too.
absolutely.
I think fear of death is a greater motivation than fear of poverty. So I
Yes.
also think that people would be like, I have to bank 100 hours. I've always got to have 100 hours in the bank just in case.
Yeah.
I don't know.
now what's going to take you out of working? We obviously
Nothing.
said they
That's the thing,
stopped
right?
all non-accident related deaths, no
I
disease,
just have
no
this vision
hunger.
of foam over everything.
Right. Everyone's walking around in bubble suits.
Like in a bubble suit,
Right,
I
right.
can never get hurt again.
Yeah. So what's
Imagine
the
that-
limiter there? What's
I
the
don't know.
limiter? The fear of death? But
Yeah,
again,
it
now
is.
you're in control of your own death. Do
Well-
you think there would be people that will just, hello, kitty. Do you think people will just never want to die? They'll
Does
just go
it-
forever and
absolutely.
ever and ever and
Does
ever
the
and ever.
story mention
People will
if-
continue.
Does the story mention if depression is solved as well?
No, they
that wasn't-
say
I feel like that would be the #1 cause of death.
all non-accident related deaths, cancer,
Yeah.
dementia, heart disease, AIDS, malaria, and many other global scourges of the past were eradicated in a generation.
All right, so this is like a little bit of a rabbit hole. I don't want to go too far down, but
Uh-oh, here we
I
go.
feel like if I had 1,000 hours saved up, the first thing I would do is just sigh. I'd just be like,
Yeah.
I'd be like, well, but no, I don't mean in a good way. I mean in a like, now what do I like a lack of purpose,
Okay.
right? Like I could see somebody who had a bunch of time saved up, not understanding, being like I'm not afraid, and so if I'm not afraid, what's my goal? So I could see depression being a
huge issue.
being a
for
bigger
sure.
point, because for a lot of people, the need to like provide for your children, the need to like get a car, the need to like achieve
Right.
is their driving motivation in their life, and without that, like I think just depression sets in.
Yeah.
What about the living the same day over and over and over and over and over again? Because right now we know we have say
Like
each
how many
pe-
days can you go fishing?
Like
Yeah.
for example, we all know approximately we're all going to live 80 to 100 years. We know that's our cap.
Yeah.
There's a timeline when you go, okay, I'm 35 years old. I'm a third of the way through my life right
Yeah.
now. There's that cognitive set in that goes, oh crap, I'm a third of the way through my life. What have I? There's like this
have
reflection
I done?
period.
What do I have to show for my
What,
time?
what have I
Where-
accomplished?
Yeah.
What
Where-
are people going to remember me for?
Exactly. And here these people can go, oh, I haven't done what I needed to do. Let me bank up more time. And then
Yeah.
do they get to that point where they're like fully satisfied? Or do
Oh,
they,
no.
you don't think so? You don't think they'll be like, wow,
Why
I've
is
done
that ending?
everything?
I think that's the human condition.
I do think though, so like I've thought like, oh, I'd love to do this. Well, I'm 45. Like, what's the payback, right? Like,
Yeah.
5 more years of school, like 10 more years of student loans. Like,
Yeah.
I think if you thought you had a couple of 100 years, you might change careers.
Yeah, I would. I would love to
5
try
times.
several
So-
different
or
things.
more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So there would be constantly this new innovation.
He gets big.
Now, okay, so knowing that people live forever and ever and ever, and this system has been in place for quite a bit of time,
Yeah.
do you think this will evolve even further? Because you have these people changing careers, being more innovative, going on.
Yeah, I think the way society works totally changes.
Totally
Jeremy's
changes.
right.
Yeah, so
The
it'll
number-
change even further.
How long education is, how long the maturation period is with your children,
Yeah.
how long all of it.
Well, even the whole pill factor. Like,
How many times you change
what if
jobs.
you like no longer need to take a pill? Like they just do something genetically to the people.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the
Yeah.
evolution aspect could be crazy if you have people living forever and ever and ever.
It would make gambling a lot more interesting. Like you literally like, I've got 40 years left. I'm playing it. You win you lose the hand and you just drop dead at the table. Like
People would probably do that.
Right?
I
Yeah.
do not doubt that.
yeah, craps would be a whole different game, man. All right, so I guess that probably wraps us up on this one. You've been listening to After Dinner Conversation with myself, with Jeremy, with Ashley. We just got done talking about my fellow Immortal Americans. You can download this story if you are just tuning in and you haven't read it on Amazon, on Apple, wherever wherever you can get ebooks, and you can download those to all the places you can get ebooks, computers,
Yeah.
laptops, cell phones. You can also listen to this podcast, or if you're watching it on YouTube, online. There are other ones, so you can keep watching. And next week we will be talking about what is our next one? It's The Shadow of the Thing?
Yes, the
Yeah,
shadow.
The Shadow of the Thing, a story about a drug, but there's a lot of like science fiction-y stuff.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
About a drug that allows you to maybe like see the true nature of the
Of
world around
reality.
you, of everything. Yeah, it's like the apple in or the not. There's not even an apple in the Bible, but the apple that people think is in the Bible about becoming like a special thing.
By the way, if you are a writer or would like to try your hand in writing and you have a couple of short stories with ethical dilemmas or scenarios that you think would spark up a really good conversation, send them on in.
Yeah. There's
we'll-
a contest going on right now too.
there you go.
Yeah, there's a writing contest where I'm sorry to cut you off, but
No, that's exactly.
if submit that. I think the entry fee is like $10 or $20. And if you're selected, you'll get $250, and your story will be discussed on this show
And a cat.
and kept and put on with cats, yeah, and put on a website and published on Amazon. And so you can submit stuff if you're like, yeah, I've got a really good idea, a way better way to do time currency or
Yeah.
cat
Yeah.
currency. Maybe yours is the cat currency.
What if cats took over the world?
Cats are the only form of currency in the world.
I would live in that world.
Right?
Kittens are worth a lot.
Yeah. So we'll see you next week. We'll be back again at the Cat Cafe. Thanks.